You never forget the first time you see Blackwood Village from above. The aerial drone footage from that cold October morning still gives me chills. Mist curled like fingers over the rust-colored rooftops, as if the forest behind it had finally decided to creep into town. The houses were packed together, hunched like old men keeping secrets. The surrounding woods, gothic black pines older than any town record, loomed with silent intent. They call them the watching trees. I didn't understand why until much later. I'm a filmmaker, mostly documentaries about forgotten places, urban legends, digital folklore. My channel's nothing fancy, but I have a loyal audience who eat up stories of ghost towns and roadside disappearances. Blackwood Village had come up in obscure Reddit threads and old New England newspapers, always in half-whispered tones. Most sources described it as one of the most haunted places in America no one talks about. So I packed my gear, charged my drone, and drove 4 hours into the mountains of western Massachusetts, where the GPS signal fades and the air gets strangely thick. This wasn't going to be just another spooky story. Blackwood was something else. Blackwood was watching. When I first arrived, I was struck by how normal it seemed. Quaint, even. Cobblestone roads. Iron lanterns. A general store run by a man who looked like he hadn't blinked in 10 years. But under all that charm was something else, something stale. The kind of silence that settles when something terrible happens and everyone agrees not to speak of it. My Airbnb was in an old inn at the edge of the village called the Briar Hearth, which had only reopened recently after being shut for 20 years. I asked the innkeeper, a thin woman named Mabel, if she believed the stories. She just said, "Keep the curtains closed at night. The trees like to look in." I laughed at first. I didn't laugh again for days. My first few days in Blackwood were spent piecing together the town's history. According to dusty ledgers in the Blackwood Public Records Office, a squat brick building that smelled like decayed cedar, the village was founded in 1791 by a group of puritanical settlers led by Elias Vane, a preacher from Salem who claimed to have heard God whispering from the trees. I filmed his portrait in the town hall. His eyes were too detailed for a 1700s oil painting. They looked alive. Vane's original journals, preserved under glass, described Blackwood as a sanctuary carved by will and sharpened by suffering. His followers fled persecution and famine, settling in the shadow of Black Hollow Ridge, a place the local tribes reportedly refused to enter. There were stories even back then. People saw lights in the trees. Heard voices underground. But Elias insisted it was holy ground. Chosen. Purged by divine fire. It took me a while to find the contradiction. Almost none of the original settlers made it to their third year. Entire families died mysteriously. There were fires, sudden illnesses, and more than one case of wandering disappearance, where someone walked out of their cabin in broad daylight and never came back. It was all there in brittle ink. The land, it seemed, had claimed them. I met a local librarian named Mark Simmons, who agreed to go on camera if I didn't use his real name. He said, "You can dig through Blackwood's history all you want. The deeper you go, the more it stares back." When I asked him what he meant, he told me about the Hollow Choir. That was new. In the mid-1800s, several children in Blackwood reported hearing music underground, singing like wind trapped in stone. At first, adults dismissed it. But then a minister named Reverend Cotter disappeared. His body was found days later in the old mine shaft on the north side of town. His mouth was stuffed with pages torn from his own sermons. His eyes were gone, scooped clean. That part never made it into public record. Simmons gave me an old journal, a copy, thankfully, written by a school teacher in 1864 named Clara Wilkes. She wrote of waking in the night and seeing figures around her bed, all wearing branches for faces and dripping pitch from their sleeves. She fled town 2 weeks later. No one ever saw her again. I began to think Blackwood was a funnel. A catch basin for something that shouldn't be touched. What's strange is how modern the town looks today. Despite everything, it didn't decay like most ghost towns. It evolved, even flourished, for a time. By the 1970s, Blackwood had become something of a dark tourism hotspot. Paranormal investigators, amateur ghost hunters, even journalists came flocking. A guy named Robert Griggs opened the Blackwood Paranormal Museum in '78. It's still open, barely. When I visited, the entire place smelled like mildew and expired incense. Inside were photos of shadow figures, EMF readings, and a preserved piece of scorched wood labeled Vane's cross. Griggs' son, Michael, ran the place now. I asked him what he thought about the hauntings. "They're not ghosts," he told me. "This place is sick. Sick like the earth's got a wound right under us. And something's leaking out." I couldn't tell if he meant it metaphorically. Then things started happening. My drone footage, every morning, had static warps in the exact same place, near the old Vane Chapel ruins. I checked the camera. Nothing was wrong. I even brought a second drone. Same result. One night, I woke to knocking at the window. 3 slow taps. My room was on the 2nd floor. No fire escape. No tree near the glass. When I opened the curtain, I saw nothing, just the forest's edge and the path beyond, lit dimly by moonlight. Except, one of the trees had moved. I was sure of it. I returned to Vane Chapel the next afternoon, alone. My handheld camera began to glitch. I still have the footage. The trees seem to breathe. Their bark pulses, subtly, as if in rhythm with a low-frequency hum. Then, in the ruined foundation of the chapel, I saw it. A pit. Circular. Smooth. Perfect. As if cut not by man, but by design. My flashlight revealed only darkness. No bottom. No echo. The locals call it the mouth. I wasn't prepared for what happened next. The audio on my camera picked up something before I heard it. A murmur. Then a word, deep, layered, like multiple voices speaking at once. "Come." I ran. The following days were blurred. I remember filming interviews, backing up data, editing clips. But things started vanishing. My hard drive corrupted. 2 memory cards went blank. Mabel at the inn asked me 3 times what my name was, each time more confused. I started hearing music when I closed my eyes, low tones, like the last notes of a cello, dragging across the inside of my skull. I tried to leave on the 5th day. My car wouldn't start. The tow truck never came. Mabel didn't answer the door. I spent that night in the chapel ruins, compelled by something I still can't explain. Down in the mouth, I dropped a glow stick tied to fishing line. It vanished. No impact. No resistance. Just swallowed. I lowered a recorder into the void and left it for 3 hours. When I played it back, the recording was wrong. It was me. My voice. Screaming. I finally left Blackwood at dawn, hiking to a ranger station miles away. I told them I got lost. I didn't mention the mouth. I didn't mention the voice. Back in my apartment, days later, I found something in my suitcase I didn't pack, a folded page from a handwritten journal. It was Clara Wilkes' writing. It read, "We are not alone here. The God below hungers. It sings to the soil. And we, foolish children, built our homes atop its tongue." I've posted some of this online, never the full footage. Something always goes wrong. Audio corrupts. Video loops. Files erase. Blackwood's still there. Still open. Still pulling people in. But I don't go back. Because sometimes, in dreams, I still hear the hum. And sometimes, when I wake, I find dirt under my nails. And pine needles on the floor. And a single, whispered word still echoing from a place that should not speak. Come. They say our village is blessed. That was the first thing I was told as a child. Blessed with fertile soil, peaceful winters, and a community that never turned away its own. Outsiders rarely came, but we didn't mind. Life in Eldon Grove, our small, picturesque village tucked between Twin Hills and the Whispering Woods, was slow and peaceful. Almost untouched by time. It wasn't until I turned 26 that I learned peace is often a cage in disguise. My name is Micah. I grew up here, like my parents and their parents before them. Eldon Grove has a saying passed down through generations, "What feeds us must never be questioned." Most villagers say it in jest. A bit of folklore, an old superstition. But I never laughed at it, not really, It always felt heavier. Like a warning. It started with symbols. Odd ones, carved into the roots of the grove trees that circle our farmland, spirals and intersecting triangles, always pointing inward. I noticed them during my evening walks. No one else seemed to, or maybe they pretended not to. Then I started hearing music. Low hums carried by the wind, always after dusk, always from the hills beyond the wheat fields. I asked about it once during a village bonfire. Old Mr. Heron went silent. His eyes flicked to the elder, Elias Rowe, who stared at me for a long moment and said, "Don't follow the wind, Micah. That's not a path you walk back from." That night, the music got louder. It wasn't just sound, it had shape. Like the rhythm of breathing. Like something ancient, remembering. Elias Rowe had been village elder since before I was born. Tall, thin, white-bearded, and always dressed in grey, he carried authority without speaking much. People listened. They obeyed. Even the mayor, even the constables. It wasn't written anywhere, but everyone knew, what Elias said, went. The elder lived at the very edge of the grove in a large, weather-worn house surrounded by a stone fence. No one visited unless summoned. Except one person. A man I'd never seen before. It was nearly midnight when I spotted him, long coat, wide-brimmed hat, standing outside Elias's gate. I watched from a distance, hidden behind a tree. Elias stepped out, greeted him, and handed over a cloth-wrapped object. The man nodded. Said nothing. Then disappeared into the woods. Something about the exchange felt wrong. Like I'd seen the final move in a game I didn't know I was part of. That's when I started digging. Over the next week, I searched the old records in the village archive. Birth logs, property maps, council votes. There were gaps. Missing years. Blacked out names. But one symbol appeared again and again in the margins. 3 downward pointing arrows in a triangle. Then I found something strange in the back of a weathered ledger, a list titled Beneficiaries of the Pact. It listed every mayor, council member, and business leader in Eldon Grove dating back nearly 100 years. Every one of them had the symbol next to their name. I cross-checked with the map. All of their homes formed a perfect circle around the center of town. The village well. At the center of everything. A mouth that never ran dry. Even in drought. The deeper I looked, the stranger things became. The general store's ledgers showed phantom purchases, large deliveries of livestock on dates no one remembered seeing animals arrive. The tailor's logs listed materials that didn't exist anymore. Elias's property records were sealed. And always, the symbol. 3 downward arrows. Like something falling from above, or worse, descending by choice. I made sketches and notes, started connecting dots. Then I saw something I wasn't meant to. From the woods near the western ridge, I spotted torchlight one night. Several villagers in long robes walking in a line, toward a hill I'd always thought was just a forest knoll. They entered through a stone arch overgrown with ivy. The next day, I hiked there. The arch was gone. A few days later, I confronted Elias. I told him what I'd seen, the torches, the ledger, the symbols. He didn't deny any of it. Instead, he invited me in. I should have run. But I was too far in. The truth had hooks now. Elias poured tea from a black kettle and sat across from me. "You're not the first to ask, Micah," he said quietly. "But most who ask, wish they hadn't." I asked about the society. The rituals. The beneficiaries. Elias stared at the steam rising from his cup. "There are many names. The Hollow Grove Pact. The Seeded Circle. We do not worship. We remember. And we obey." He explained how the society had been here long before Eldon Grove, how the land had been chosen because of what sleeps beneath it. A presence older than civilization, older than memory. The original settlers made a pact, prosperity in exchange for silence, and a tithe. What kind of tithe? I asked. Elias looked up, his eyes glassy. Every 7 years, something is taken. And something is given. Always equal. Always fair. My stomach turned. And if someone refuses? I asked. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. That night, I watched the baker's son disappear. He was 6. Laughed with a missing front tooth. Always fed stray cats. Gone. His mother ran through the streets screaming. But no one helped. No one spoke. And at the village square, I saw something I'll never forget. A small circle of blood at the base of the well. Still warm. I gathered what I could, my notes, my camera, the symbol carvings, and tried to alert the local news in the next town. Nothing sent. My messages were blocked. My phone bricked. Then came the knock at my door. 3 sharp taps. I opened it, heart racing. Elias stood there, flanked by 2 of the constables. "You've seen too much," he said. "And not enough." They brought me to the hill. The archway was there this time, because they wanted me to see it. Inside the hill was a stone chamber, deep underground, lit by oil lamps. In the center, a circular pit, not unlike a well. But it breathed. And above it hung chains, not rusted, not iron. Organic. Like vines and veins braided together. A whisper came from the hole. I couldn't understand the language, but I felt it. It was pleased. Elias told me I could join them. The village must continue. The pact must be upheld. You can help guide us forward, Micah. Or you can feed the soil. I asked what would happen if I told the others. The ones who didn't know. His smile didn't reach his eyes. They'll forget. Or they'll disappear. Just like the last one. That night, I returned home. I didn't sleep. I stared at my door. At the woods beyond my window. The next morning, Elias made a public announcement. A new harvest celebration, a time of gratitude. Smiles returned. Laughter echoed. The baker's wife said nothing. I had a choice. Expose everything, and risk more disappearances. Or stay silent, and become complicit in the lie. I chose to speak. I gathered a small group. Told them everything. Showed them the ledgers, the symbols, the footage I'd finally managed to recover. They believed me. The next day, 2 of them were gone. The third, forgot. So I made another choice. I stood in the square and rang the iron bell. Called the whole village. And I spoke. About the pact. The well. The boy. At first, people stared in silence. Then someone cried. Then someone else screamed. Elias stepped forward, calm and composed, but this time, the people didn't listen. They rushed him. Tore down the banners. Pushed past the constables. We marched to the hill. The arch was gone again. We dug for days. Then we found it. The chamber. The pit. Empty now. Silent. But the ground pulsed. Then, from the deep, a sound like bones grinding against roots. The village fell silent. And that's where the story ends. For now. Because something has changed in Elden Grove. The air is heavier. The trees lean closer. The soil is wet. They say peace has returned. But I know better. The pact is broken. And something ancient has started to stir. Something that was once fed. And now, is hungry. They always told us never to touch the stone. It sat at the edge of town, just past the wild heather fields, perched on a hill like a buried skull. Smooth, black, silent. No markings. No insects ever crawled over it. No birds ever landed on it. It was just there, like it had been waiting for something. Or someone. I used to ride my bike past it as a kid, always speeding up when I got too close. My grandmother, who raised me, used to say, "That stone don't sleep. It just stares. Keep your eyes low and your mouth shut." I thought she was just being weird. Until the dream started. It began after the funeral. Gran died in her sleep at 84. Peaceful, they said. But her face didn't look peaceful in the casket. Her mouth was slightly open, like she was whispering something to someone. I moved back into her cottage, near the stone hill, to handle the estate. First night back, I dreamed of the stone. But it wasn't on the hill. It was in my living room, wet and breathing, like a lung made of rock. When I woke up, my window was open. The fields were dead silent. A week passed. Every night the dream got worse. The stone didn't just sit there anymore, it watched. I could feel it shifting, dragging itself across the grass, getting closer to my door. My walls began to hum at night, low and rhythmic, like a chant underwater. Then I found the journal. It was hidden behind a false panel in Gran's bookshelf. Leather-bound, brittle with age, filled with ink drawings and symbols I'd never seen before. One passage stood out, scribbled in frantic pen. We didn't bury it. It burrowed. We only covered the wound it left behind. Another page. Do not speak to it. It is always listening. It knows the names of your blood. I slammed the book shut. The next night, I heard my name in the wind. I tried to leave town. Car wouldn't start. GPS went blank. Even the gas station was locked up like it hadn't opened in years. Back home, I lit a fire and opened a bottle of whiskey. Tried to pretend none of it was real. Then something knocked. Not at the door. From under the floorboards. I ripped up the boards the next morning and found damp earth beneath. Something had been digging. Tunneling toward the center of the house. That night, I stayed awake with a flashlight and a kitchen knife. At 3:14 a.m., the power died. The fire went out. The floor creaked. And I heard it again. The whisper. Not a whisper. Gran's voice. She was saying my name. Softly. From beneath the floor. I don't remember picking up the flashlight. I don't remember grabbing the shovel. But I found myself standing at the stone by dawn, barefoot, shovel in hand, like I'd been summoned. And for the first time in my life, I touched it. It was warm. The moment my skin met the surface, my head split with images. Black skies. Twisting roots. Voices screaming in languages I didn't know but somehow understood. I saw our village. Burning. Flooding. Sinking. I saw Gran. Kneeling beside the stone as a child. And I saw a shape, inside it. Sleeping. Breathing. Smiling. I woke up 2 days later in my kitchen. Mud on the floor. Dirt in my mouth. The stone is gone now. But the earth where it sat? It pulses. Just barely. Like a second heartbeat under the hill. No one remembers it was ever there. But I do. And sometimes, when the night is still, and the wind is just right, I hear Gran whispering my name again.